that she wanted this child out of her life. So it might not have been an accident, and if that were true, maybe she had to figure out something else to do with her.
And to clinical psychologist Patricia Saunders, what do you make of the pairing? I always say no coincidence in criminal law that she was spending a great deal of time living with on and off a boyfriend during those weeks, and those are the weeks the little girl goes missing.
Well, I have to agree with Pat Brown about psychopathic traits. There's a callousness in so much of Casey's behavior, the partying, the boyfriend saying she didn't panic. That is one of the hallmarks of the psychopath yeah.
A hallmark of the psychopath. Interesting what you just said, Dr. Patricia Saunders. Out to Nikki Pierce with WDBO. Patricia is right. Not only did she not panic, according to boyfriend Anthony Lazaro, with whom she was living at the time the little girl goes missing, she didn't even mention her daughter was missing or her search for a little caylee. What does that suggest to you, and what are the reports about that, Nikki?
Well, reports are saying that Tony Lazaro was told, oh, well, Caylee is with the nanny. Caylee is at Disney World with the nanny, at the beach with the nanny. So he had no idea this entire time that Caylee was missing at all. Casey's behavior did not communicate to him in any way any sort of panic, any sort of concern. As you said, she never mentioned it. The first time that Tony Lazaro found out that Caylee was missing was when deputies knocked on his door.
Okay, you know what? Let's unleash the lawyers. Victims' rights advocate, you know her very well, Gloria Allred, joining us out of L.A. Raymond Giudice, defense attorney, veteran trial lawyer out of Atlanta. Michael Mazzarello, defense attorney and host of Closing Arguments. He's a star of the upcoming show Street Court. Welcome to all of you to Ray Giudice. She's living with this guy for about a month on and off, and she never mentions my baby has been kidnapped. She never cries. She never gets on the phone to try to find the little girl. They never go out hunting the neighborhood. How are you going to work with that? How are you going to massage that at trial, Ray Giudice?
Well, I would say it's a significant problem, as you pointed out, but let's not forget, if I'm everybody around this girl, I'm clamming up. I'm not fessing to any involvement with this child, because there's no question that this young lady is going to point her fingers at everybody around her, and maybe even this boyfriend. So if I'm him, I'm going into a defensive posture right now.
So you're saying your argument would be that Anthony Lazaro, who's been completely cooperative with police, opened up his car and apartment to them, is lying?
I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying he's going into a defensive posture because he knows this lady is lashing out. She's grasping for straws. Look, I'm not saying this is a good argument for her. She's got significant problems, and the boyfriend's not helping her. And I believe that's why she's being cut off by her lawyers from having any more visits and phone calls, because this case is going down for her.
I get it. I get it. And you're saying Anthony Lazaro could be the key to her defense. He was the one she was with during that time. Michael, agree?
Absolutely.
And would you like to add a thought?
No, I think Ray's right on the money. Look, this guy could be running scared himself. He was there with her. He has something to hide, maybe so. The defense attorney's right. Cut off all visits. Just talk with me. Try to get your client out of jail so you can prepare an adequate defense and investigate the boyfriend, Nancy.
Well, the two of you are right on one count, and that is all jailhouse visits with family and others have been canceled since formal charges came down last week. Back to Gloria Allred, victims' rights advocate. What do you make of it, Gloria?
Well, I mean, as far as the telephone calls being canceled, the visits being canceled, obviously, finally, her attorney's gotten some control here, because before it was obvious all the telephone calls were being recorded, all of them were being broadcast. She was making statements which could be used potentially either as admissions or to impeach her or in some way to entangle her in her own lies. And so none of that was really any good for her. And certainly having her brother, for example, act as an interrogator for the police, that wasn't good for her. But oh, what a web we weave, Nancy, when first we fashion to deceive.
And, of course, if you're taking a look at these photos of Mom Casey Anthony out at the hot body contest. This is after little Kelly goes missing. Anthony Lazaro, the boyfriend, is not telling us anything we didn't already know. Once you've seen these photos, she's not grieving. She's not looking for the little girl. Nothing. There she is kissing some girl for the camera. Out to the lines, Stacy in Arkansas. Hi, Stacy.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, dear. What's your question?
Well, first I want to tell you your babies are beautiful. I have a 5-year-old daughter myself.
Thank you very much. They're the joys of my life.
Well, mine is too. I had more of a ponder, you know, something to think about. Last week when she refused to see her brother, could that be maybe possibly because, you know, brothers and sisters have close relationships more than maybe parent and child? Maybe she refused to see him because she might crack and tell the truth.
Interesting. Let's go back out to Patricia Saunders. Stacy in Arkansas is correct. The jailhouse visit was turned away after the brother and earlier the parents had come all the way to the jail to see her. I wonder if it was because of the reasons Stacy said or because the family is starting to ask her very tough questions.
I think it's both, that because she may be closer with her brother, that he may be the first one in the family to perceive the crack in this house of lies.
Well, Patricia, you hit on something. In some of his phone calls, he was asking some very pointed questions about her cell phone calls. Let's go to the expert, Ben Levitan, telecommunications expert, joining us out of Atlantic City. Ben, the cops apparently are trying to ping or locate position her cell phone calls during the dates, between the dates of June 16 and June 18, where obviously they think a death or a kidnapping occurred. How do you retroactively go back in the past and ping or locate cell phone calls?
Well, Nancy, that's real easy. Actually, the information you get on your phone bill is only about 1/10 or 1/15 of the actual information that's collected on every single phone call that's made. I mean, if you look at the full records with it, it appears to me that the police had a meeting with Cindy Anthony, and they laid out the full, what they call call detail records in front of her, and that showed exactly what cell site she was on, what side of the cell site she was on, who she was calling, when she was calling, and by taking those, you could even find out what direction and velocity she was driving.
We get threats every day. We get written threats. We get threats on our home phone. We get threats on our cell phones. We get threats on our email. We just get rid of them. We delete them, and we don't really. You can't dwell on that kind of stuff.
I wish this person or persons that had her would call up and say, CNN, I have this little girl. I believe she's a little girl who's missing from Orlando, Florida. You know what kind of story that would be?
The Anthony family now publicly stating they firmly believe little Kelly has been kidnapped, that they believe they know who the kidnappers are, and, quote, the kidnappers are being watched. By whom? To Mark Williams with WNDB, who are the kidnappers and who is watching the kidnappers?
Well, that's a great question because George Anthony this morning never elaborated who these kidnappers are, who's watching these folks. Carlos Padilla from the sheriff's office said, we don't think Caylee was kidnapped at all. We don't know what he's talking about. So I don't know if George is just pulling this out of thin air or if he's delusional. Seriously.
I don't believe it's either one. In his defense, I don't think he's pulling it out of thin air. I think he's getting it from his daughter. I do not think George Anthony is delusional. I think that he is believing what his daughter is telling him. I want to go back out to Ben Levitan, telecommunications expert. You just told us that cell phone calls can sometimes be pinged or located in the direction in which the car is going and the velocity of the car. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, you did. Well, if you look at most cell towers, because land is so expensive, they'll put 3 cell towers on every site. And if you look up at them, you'll see they're in a triangle. So, so much information is recorded on every call you make. You could tell which direction she was going or where the call was coming from.
Hence the term triangulation. How long does it take to get those records, Ben?
Well, those are recorded immediately, and they're kept for a period of anywhere from 30 to 120 days. And from those records, your phone bill is made, and then the phone companies may toss them away after, 1 or 2 months. But apparently in this case, the police have obtained those records, so they have significant technical detail.
Saturday was the second hardest day I think we've been through. The first day was not realizing our granddaughter was where she's supposed to be. And that was the hardest day.